2 years ago, I walked away from a career making over $100,000 a year for a pressure washer. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Was it worth it? Looking back today, I finally have the answer. But here's what I didn't realize back then. Leaving corporate America was not just one major decision. It was 4 decisions. I'll explain those before this video ends. So when I was working in corporate America, I had everything that people are told to chase. Big bank account, medical benefits, unlimited paid time off, working from the comfort of my own home. On the outside, everything looked amazing, but I just couldn't shake this feeling. I was literally trading the best hours of my life to build someone else's dreams. At first, I struggled. I thought to myself, am I being ungrateful? And then I did what most of us do. I defaulted into saying things like, well, the money's good. I have security for my family. It could always be worse. Maybe I should just shut up and be grateful for what I have. Well, it finally got to the point where those justifications weren't enough anymore. And I started contemplating leaving the corporate machine. Leading up to the decision to leave, I started to evaluate my life. And I realized that, yes, there was a lot of stress, anxiety, pressure to perform, useless meetings. What I was starting to feel was like I was being boxed in. It was almost as if I had to leave the better part of me at the door before I clocked in. It always fascinates me how much talent, skills, different experiences that we all possess that we're not able to bring into the workplace. It's almost as if we put on this mask for the 9 to 5, and then when we leave, we can take the mask off. Well, all these things started to really mount, coupled with the fact that I realized I wasn't getting any younger. So with every meeting, every conference call, every time I saw policies and procedures and things that I felt could have been better, it really intensified those feelings of being boxed in. But above all of that, what really started wearing down on me, I had so much more to offer, but these roles didn't allow any of it. I started realizing that this corporate machine started squeezing all of my creativity, my inspiration, and my ideas. Looking back now, I realized this was the first step. So I made the jump, free as a bird, right? But here's the part that no one prepares you for. What happens when the reality of starting over starts to settle in? Having to learn the business, having an empty calendar, long days covered in mud, getting rained on, equipment breaking down, and also facing comments from people such as, why would you leave an office to work in the sun? Don't you have an MBA degree? Why are you doing grunt work? So as all of these things are swirling, you get hit with fear, self-doubt. Wait, did I make the right decision here? This is a difficult time in the learning process where you're met with the challenge of deciding, do I continue or do I hit the exit sign? This is when your mental really gets tested. Do you really have what it takes to persevere? You see, starting your own business does not mean that you leave behind all the problems. In fact, many of the problems that you faced before still exist, just in a different form. One of the primary reasons that people start their own business is to be in control. But what happens when you feel like everything's totally out of your control? It is completely normal. You may be asking along with everyone else, was it worth it? Looking back, I can finally explain what happened. It wasn't one quantum leap, but it was actually 4 decisions that forced me to develop a way of thinking that I still use today. I call it the J.O.E.L method. It is not a magic formula to help you quit your job to become an entrepreneur overnight, but rather it's a framework for figuring out what you want, what you're willing to sacrifice, and for deciding whether or not the life that you are chasing is worth the price tag. Let me now break down exactly what it looked like for me. Jump. This is one of the most important steps that one can make, is deciding to jump. Take the leap of faith. So the hardest part was not the pressure washing. The hardest part was deciding to jump before I had all the answers and everything figured out. Just having the wherewithal to force yourself to make a move is huge. It can be life-changing. Own. This is where I took ownership of my future, my journey, and my business. That's the day that I quit blaming situations or making room for the no. Instead, looking for ways of getting to yes. Look, at the recording of this video is 2026. With the internet, now AI, we live in an information-rich generation. There are zero excuses anymore. Open up your eyes and realize it. Think like an owner. Execute. What I did was I developed my plan. I figured out how I can make it work for me. One thing that I decided was I'm gonna start where I can start. You may have heard it said, a journey of 1,000,000 miles starts with the first step. So that's exactly what I did. I started with the first step of planning, developed a plan, and decided to work my plan. I defined what success looked like for me. I took the corporate limits off of my mind and I began to think as an owner. It's not just one experience that leads you to success. It's hundreds of experiences together that make success. Execute your plan. Lead. I remember the exact moment when I made up my mind that I was going to lead. And that's when I leaned in all the way to what I was doing. I took it from my head and I placed it in my heart. I talked about what it was that I was doing. I shared it without restraint, without fear. And I decided I was going to lead my family, my business, and my destiny, which ultimately creates opportunity for myself, but also for others, whether that be clients, employees that come and join our team. And hopefully this encourages at least one person watching this video right now. So, was leaving my $100,000 a year job worth it? Financially? There were moments that I questioned everything I was doing. But emotionally, spiritually, and personally, absolutely. If you're thinking about making the jump yourself, remember the J.O.E.L method. Jump. Own. Execute. And lead. Those 4 words changed my life. And maybe they'll change yours.